Y'all, Wizard101 is about to put out another game-changing update that we need to talk about. So if you guys watched my previous video covering the recent update, they did a lot of things, especially for PvP. They made it so that drains used in PvP have a 25% debuff, so they're not doing extremely above the expectations of what a death should be able to do in terms of damage. And they also made it so that spells that counter things like blades and traps are way better. Scarecrow counters more blades than it used to. Sun Serpent counters like 8 traps now, which it never used to do. The oppressive nature of drains and PvE strats where people just spam traps and blades are no longer a thing in PvP. If you're going to do those strategies, there are trade-offs, just like any other school doing any strategy. But the one thing that they left out in the recent update is that they kept a bunch of TCs that let you do tons of extra damage that are gonna be banned in the next update. So to be clear, certain item cards and treasure cards, according to one of the devs that work on this game, Cam, they're gonna be gone from PvP in the next update. Now, this includes TCs that do well above the damage per pip. I think one of the big ones is Spectral Blast. If you hit a Storm Spectral Blast, this hits for like literally almost 50% more than what a normal 4-pip balance spell hits for. So there's like crazy examples like Spectral would just do crazy damage for balance, but it looks like the rule is if any TC does over 20% more than the damage per pip of your school, it's going to be banned in PvP, even if it's an item card. Now, in my opinion, like all, bans in general, this is a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is it looks like this might actually address several loopholes that have existed. Things that really don't make sense, right? Like I want to say at least 5 months ago, they banned the top path of Hydra because it's based on elemental DPP, I want to say, meaning it's based on averaging fire, ice, and storm damage per pip. And it just did way more than a balance would ever do. Like 750 damage for a balance is a crazy amount, especially considering the fact that this can hit through a tower very easily. And yet the item card version of this that certain pets give does even more than this. So this version was banned, but the item card that does 265 ahead wasn't. Right? Loopholes like that are just kind of weird to even keep in the game, they're finally being addressed. What I think will happen as a result of this is PvP, especially the damage expectation for every school, it's going to feel a lot less half-assed. And the barrier to entry for playing is going to be a lot lower. A lot of these like high damage treasure cards are actually hard to get. Most people that have tons of copies of these spells either have traded in other Discord servers to get these TC, or they've had to like farm an exorbitant amount, which makes no sense to have to do for PvP. Right, 2 of the spells on this ban list that are upcoming are Ember Everburn and Clanker. These are cards that you literally can only get from a pack. It's absolutely ridiculous that these cards, as good as they are only available in packs. Now, do I think that the perfect solution is just to ban any card that's, used as, a way to do damage? It would be a heartfelt no. What I really hope is that this is a temporary change where, one, they could either make these do like around 20% extra, like every TC for every school that's allowed in PvP. They can make it so that people that spent a lot of resources to get these cards, maybe they could trade them in for, more balanced versions of themselves. Maybe they could add a recipe in the arena. I think that would be a cool idea. Or, and I think this is easily the most important change they could do, I think they just need to add more spells that you can pack that increase your damage for doing certain things. We do already have spells like that. Obviously we have like the 7-pip, the 11-pip, the 9-pip ones. Those are very hard to do because you need many hanging effects. But we also have very simple versions, right? Like Storm Shark, if you heal, instead of doing 400 damage for 3 pips, you can do 625, which is way more than a storm can normally do with 3 pips. I would love to see a version of this for having blades on yourself as a storm that can scale up to having, extra damage for 1 blade, extra damage for 2 blades. And I'd love to see variations of this across every school. Depending on which school you give these to, it could actually really buff them in a way where we don't even need to have a conversation about, oh, I'm losing damage because these TCs are banned. We could just have creative ways to do damage that are pretty natural to the way you play the school already. That's kind of what I hope that they end up doing, like, make it so that the TCs, if people have a ton of them, they can trade them in for something that they can still use. And in the future, we have more ways to do damage by actually like focusing on what makes a school the school. But what I'm definitely not going to miss is item cards doing more damage and being PvP allowed than spells that have already been deemed too good for PvP. That I'm not going to miss. I think that's actually going to make PvP a lot more playable. It might actually nerf balance down to every other school, which might mean this is the first meta where I want to say more than 5 schools are actually very competitive. The one part of this that I think a lot of people are going to find controversial is the Tamauji ban, the Tamagooch ban. Y'all have seen me, man. I made videos using this spell. This is one of the main sources of damage an ice can do just without like really doing anything extra. And I'd say compared to every other school in PvP right now, I feel like ice just isn't competitive, and that's mainly because they just don't have good damage. I think Tamagooch was probably the last major high damage source, you know, card that they had as ice wizards, and now that it's going to be banned in the next update, it really increases the questions of what they're going to do to, like, you know, buff ice. Ever since Stunned got banned, they actually don't even have a good Winter Moon spell that they can even use in PvP. Like, you can't even use this for damage if you wanted because it's just not allowed. So I feel like this would be a good place to start. Maybe make this a damage-centric spell. Maybe add damage for having shields on yourself. I think that would be really, really cool. But beyond that, I think the accuracy on ice spells in general is way too low for this to be considered a tank school. What every other tank school has in common is that they're high accuracy. But you need a whopping 25 accuracy to not fizzle your lore spells or fizzle your bombs, like your shad. Like, yeah, these spells are great and all, but the fact that you need like 25 accuracy to use them, it makes it so you really can't invest in the utility that's found in other schools at all. And it just makes you a very boring, colorless tank that can barely do anything against anyone that's using their tools. While I really like what they did recently, they added a lot of spells where you could actually like literally hit through weaknesses like Evil Snowman and Woolly Mammoth. That part's cool, but I would like spells that are less reactive in nature to do extra damage. I think that would be amazing. Maybe they could just take that Winter Moon idea and we wouldn't have to worry about anything. But if that's not, like, if they're not on board for that, something that either reduces the stat burden for ice or just the damage potential for ice, increase that would be great, because otherwise I feel like this TC ban is gonna nerf a school that's already struggling, which I think a lot of people are rightfully annoyed about. All in all, y'all, when this update goes out, the past 2 updates have probably been the most notable updates recently that have made PvP playable. You won't need to be successful in PvP because you spent a crazy amount of time farming for TCs or knew the right people to trade with, or you made a pet with an item card that the devs happen to overlook. These are idiotic reasons to win a game. You should win a game because of your stats and the spells that you cast. So I'm really looking forward to this. I actually think it's going to do a lot. Now it looks like the best ways to do extra damage on any school is to either use school pips, which are pretty easy to use for extra damage. Those just are worth more than normal pips, or use your hanging effects, right? Some schools can really do extra damage by taking advantage of the spells that they cast and the things that they do. I know this is going to be controversial like every TC ban is, but what do y'all think? Do y'all agree that this is both positive and negative, and hopefully more positive? And what would y'all do to buff ice now that it's absolutely ass and it's about to lose yet another and very, you know, offensive tool? I look forward to reading y'all's thoughts on this. As always, drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome. See y'all soon, and yeah.